Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're pulling apart a concept that's, well, it's been all over social feeds, book covers lately. The let them theory, or LTT. It sounds so simple, just a catchphrase, really, but it sits on top of some, pretty complex psychology.
It really does.
So we've dug into the sources you sent from its kind of surprising origins to the actual clinical stuff to figure out what this theory is, what makes it tick, and maybe crucially, when you absolutely have to stop letting them and, well, start acting.
Yeah, and what jumps out right away is how LTT acts as this a profound shortcut. It's about prioritizing your energy.
Okay.
You basically stop pouring all that effort into trying to control what other people do or say or think,
Okay.
which is exhausting, right?
Totally.
And you redirect that whole stream of energy back towards managing your own internal world, your reactions, your choices.
And that energy shift, it seems like it's got two key parts. The first is the let them bit. It sounds easy, but it's essentially radical acceptance, isn't it?
Exactly. Radical acceptance, just packaged differently.
So letting them cancel the plans, letting them judge your life choices, whatever it is, you're kind of releasing this huge weight, this need to make them act how you want.
But the real juice, the power, is in the pivot after that.
Yeah.
Once you accept the reality, okay, let them, you immediately shift to the let me part.
Ah, right. The agency piece.
That's it. That's where your personal agency kicks in. The question stops being, why are they doing this to me? Which is often, kind of futile. And it becomes the much more powerful question. Okay, given this reality, what do I want to do now? That's pure boundary setting right there.
So let's talk origins for a second, because this wasn't cooked up in a lab or a clinic, was it?
No, not at all. It's fascinating.
The whole core idea, it actually came from this really raw, viral poem, Just Let Them, by Cassie Phillips, and it came out of her own, deep personal trauma.
And that authenticity, I think, is what made it hit so hard initially. But then, what happens when things go viral?
Right, it gets grabbed.
Exactly. It was quickly formalized, streamlined, packaged into this very marketable theory by some big names in the motivational space.
And that creates this tension, doesn't it? This feeling that something born from genuine emotional labor got, well, maybe commercialized a bit too quickly. Does that packaging maybe cheapen the underlying ideas, even if they're clinically sound?
Well, it certainly raises valid questions about attribution and, the ethics of commercializing personal pain. But the reason it stuck, the reason it resonates, is because the underlying principles aren't actually new. It's just a really clever modern way to remember some solid evidence-based therapeutic concepts.
Okay, so let's connect those dots. The sources show LTT is basically a shortcut for, three main psychological ideas. The first one seems pretty obvious, locus of control.
Absolutely, spot on. LTT is fundamentally pushing you towards an internal locus of control. You stop trying to manipulate the external stuff you can't control other people, which causes huge anxiety.
Yeah.
And instead, you focus entirely on your response, your choices, the things you can control. That immediately dials down the stress.
And the let them part itself, that's pretty much radical acceptance, isn't it? Like straight out of DBT, dialectical behavior therapy.
Precisely. DBT focuses heavily on emotional regulation, tolerating distress. Radical acceptance is a cornerstone, just acknowledging reality, even when it's painful or uncomfortable, without fighting it or trying to pretend it's not happening.
So you accept it, you don't necessarily like it, but you accept it's happening.
Yes. And if you zoom out even further, you see Stoicism. It's almost a direct echo of the Stoic dichotomy of control.
Okay, explain that a bit.
The Stoics basically said, focus your energy only on what's truly yours. Your judgments, your reactions, your choices, everything else. What happens externally, what other people do, let it go. Don't waste effort there.
So LTT is like Stoicism light, in a way, a practical handle for it.
You could definitely see it that way. It works really well for those low-stakes annoyances, like, say, a friend who's always late. You accept it, let them, and then you decide your response, let me maybe bring a book, or adjust when you leave.
Okay, that makes sense for minor stuff. But that immediate relief, that ease, that brings us right to what you call the nuance mandate. Because this tool, as useful as it is, seems like it could be misused, right? Like as an excuse to just avoid conflict.
That is the critical danger zone. Misapplying LTT can look a lot like confrontation avoidance. Or worse, it can slip into territory that feels like gaslighting.
How so?
Because it can put the entire burden of managing the emotional fallout onto the person who's experiencing genuinely harmful behavior. If someone is constantly belittling you, using LTT to just passively let them isn't managing your peace. You're basically enabling abuse. LTT is for managing your reaction, not excusing their action.
Right, it's not a free pass for bad behavior. So let's get practical. You mentioned the unreliable friend. Let's say I use LTT. I set a boundary. If you cancel last minute again, I'm going to the concert alone. They do it again. They cross that clear boundary. Do I just keep letting them? Where's the line?
That's exactly where LTT has its limits and action becomes necessary. There are clear, non-negotiable exceptions. First, immediate danger, obviously. If someone's putting themselves or others at physical risk, you don't let them, you intervene, period.
Okay, that's clear.
Second, advocating for rights. When you're dealing with systemic issues, discrimination, or fighting for basic rights, passive acceptance isn't the answer. That requires assertion, often collective action.
Makes sense.
And third, your scenario, persistent boundary violation. If you've set a clear, reasonable boundary, and it's consistently ignored or crossed.
What's the concert example?
Exactly. Then acceptance isn't passive anymore. LTT can help you manage your disappointment or frustration internally, sure, but your outward response has to shift. It needs to escalate to enforcing the consequence you set, or potentially withdrawing from the situation or relationship if the violation continues. You protect your peace actively then.
Okay, so wrapping this up, what's the key takeaway for you listening right now?
I think it's that LTT is this incredibly useful, accessible mnemonic. It's a handle for some complex but powerful ideas about shifting your locus of control inward, managing your energy better, setting boundaries. But its success, its healthy use, hinges entirely on nuance. Knowing when it's for internal emotional management versus when the situation demands you step up and respond assertively.
Yeah, knowing the difference, which leads us to that final thought for you to take away. The real power of the let them theory isn't just about stopping the exhausting effort to change other people. It's about knowing when to stop that, versus when you absolutely need to make the effort to respond effectively to protect your own peace and well-being. So ask yourself, what situation in your life right now needs a controlled, boundary-enforcing response, not just an internal emotional release?